We are live.
T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know the air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. My life has value.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Global Watchman News. My name's Lori Swan. I hope you guys are all doing well. If you're in the live chat, we do ask you to keep it family friendly. There will be moderators in there to make sure that we stay within the terms of service put forth to us by the platform we're utilizing tonight. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Take a minute, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell so you know when we go live. Welcome, 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 everybody. So this is not our normal Wednesday night. Ernie is not with me tonight. I do have a special co-host because we're going to be doing a presentation to you. And before we do that, we're going to put this up on the screen because we're going to be talking about domestic abuse tonight. And I want to welcome my sister. I have known this woman for so many years. I don't even know how many. We've been through so much together. I want to welcome to the panel, Nikki.
Hello, everybody. Hello, sis. And it's been about 14 years, I think.
I think it has been about 14 years. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, yeah. I have to say, that intro is amazing. Was that Breakfast from Andre?
I think so.
Brilliant film. Advise everybody to watch it.
Oh, no,
amazing.
wait. The film, that's Network.
Oh, Network. Okay. Breakfast with Andre is a good one as well.
Yes, that is, yeah, that's the, the where he's in the studio and he's, kind of takes control of the studio and he just screams out, and yeah, that's from I don't even remember what year it was, but the movie's Network.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember it. I remember it.
yeah. 14 years we've known each other.
I know, I know. And I was terrified of you before we met.
Supposedly, okay, so you want to do a little background on how we met?
Oh yeah.
So, uh, why don't you start?
We met in a community. Don't know if I want to give the name out. There were quite a lot of us. I think this morning we were talking, we were literally kind of thrown together in it really. No mentoring, no supervision. We were literally set free to the world. And we did a lot of truth speaking, but I think a lot of harsh truth speaking. Um, tried to drum it into people, maybe a little bit harder than we would do now. I've definitely softened over the years. And we became friends because we were administrators in this community and we mentored each other. And the mad thing is that as far as domestic abuse goes, I know of four of us at more or less, well, a month before we left our exes, we all said how much we loved our husbands. And a month
Mhm.
later, we were all split up. And I individually spoke to the other three ladies, and it was mind blowing. It was like, wow, how have we come out of this together? And we basically got each other through the awfulness of leaving an abusive relationship. And all I can do to you, sis, Laurie, is thank you for helping me to get this far.
You know what? Thank you as well, because we, like you said, there was four of us, and none of us knowing what the other person was going through, but the camaraderie, the sisterhood that we formed, the bond that we
Yeah,
formed, um, really gave us strength, and
absolutely.
going through what we had gone through in that community at that time, because uh, there was a lot of chaos and tumultuous, a lot of turmoil in that
Yeah,
community at that time, and a lot of darts being thrown at particularly you and I.
yeah.
So I mean, we were going through a lot at that point. A lot was happening, not only in our personal lives but in our social media presence as well.
Yeah, and it didn't help that we discovered that the actual leader turned out to be, let's say, an odd character. I'm not going to make any diagnoses, but he was surely an odd character that messed with our heads. I could certainly call it coercive control there.
Right. And looking back on it now and knowing what we know now, because I'm going to tell you something, I didn't know anything about abuse. Um,
No.
I had come out of a 5-year abusive relationship before I met you. So I was
Mm,
aware I was aware of abuse, but I wasn't aware of the cycle that you go into, because I went right out of that relationship, literally ended. That relationship ended in April, like say April 8th of 2012. And by the end of April, I was in another abusive relationship and married to that person in September. So I came out
yeah,
of a 5-year abusive relationship and ended up married within 9 months.
yeah, yeah. That's how quick it can work, and we'll talk a lot about that later
Yeah,
on. For me, and this proves that nobody is exempt, and I'm ashamed to say that when I met my abuser, I was already married, and he manipulated me out of that marriage and had me living with him within the year. He had me pregnant and living with him within the year.
yeah,
And boy, did I regret it. 2 weeks after moving in to his house, he smashed up everything that was personal to me. And
right.
his insane jealousy was off the scale. I'd never experienced anything like it before. But
Right.
again, that's something that we'll talk about later on. We want to
Exactly.
prevent people from getting into this cycle of abuse, and I think, I'm so passionate since coming out of the relationship. It's been a really, really, really long journey of learning what happened to me, why it happened to me, what was
Right.
going on with me. Because at the end of it, when I came out of it, the only question I had to God was, who on earth am I? I don't know who I am anymore. I've
Mhm.
lost sight. I'm completely lost and downtrodden. And it was that through meeting you and the other two ladies, that we built each other up. We learnt together. We watched video after video. We read narcissistic paper after narcissistic
Mhm.
paper, and we've learned. I believe that we've taught each other, and God's taught us, so that we can now come here today and talk about it, to hopefully, even if we only prevent one person from getting away from it, that's an achievement.
Exactly. Exactly. So I'm gonna put this up on the screen to get us started. And I think this
Yes,
says it. This says it all. Domestic abuse is an epidemic, and it is, isn't it?
it is. It is. Doing the research for this presentation today, I have actually been almost to the point of sickened by the statistics that I've read. Also, it's been very triggering for me. I didn't realize how difficult coming up with this presentation would be. Um, and it's a difficult subject. It's just a really, really difficult subject. It's awkward for people that don't know anything about it to address it, and for people that have gone through it, it can be triggering. That's why we need strength. We need strength in numbers. And I think that just after that, domestic abuse is an epidemic, but connection is the antidote. And this is why we're doing this, to connect.
Exactly. And I did have that. What did I do with it? Hold on a second. I did have that. There it is. I did right there.
Yeah.
Connection is the antidote. There's a lot of what do I want to say. There's a lot of judgment when it comes to people in abusive relationships
Isn't there
because
just?
it how do I say, it's like, even if you could talk about it with somebody, the ramifications of opening up to somebody opens you up for even more abuse.
You know, I worked as an auditor, and I used to do safeguarding presentations to managers of the company that I worked for. And I didn't even recognize it in myself, even though I was giving the presentations out. It's so subtle, and your mind gets so bent that you don't really recognize anything beyond what's going on in your life. Your life becomes so small because you become isolated. And I talked to my boss one day. I'd gone through some incident, and I used to be able. I had the grace to be able to go away with my job quite a lot, and I was sitting outside um, the hotel with my boss, and I opened up to her because I thought, she does safeguarding, she will help me report this, and everything's going to be okay. Because I had a youngster then, and I was fed up, fed up of the the abuse, fed up of the abuse that he saw and he experienced.
Mhm.
So I said to my manager, I said, I think I'm in an abusive relationship, and I went on to explain the kind of things that he did to us. And she said back to me, I think I'm in an abusive relationship too. Yeah.
Wow.
And nothing, that was it. That was kind of, we talked about abuse and what we'd gone through, and that was as far as it went.
So you never really know what's happening behind closed doors to your neighbor, your relatives, your friends. You don't know. You
No,
really, you don't.
no, no. But there are signs. There are signs, and there they are. There's a cycle of narcissistic abuse. There's a
And it
way
is
that
a
they get
cycle.
hooked in. It is a cycle. And I think what's important to say here is that a lot of the statistics show female, abuse on females, and we need to remember that men go through this too. And
Correct.
there is little or no support for men out there. And something that I'm passionate about is getting the message out to men. It's a big thing for a man to open up to anybody about abuse. And since
It's demasculating to them.
absolutely,
But
absolutely,
let me just say that that is the goal of the abuse. Okay, before we get any further, we're not going to use during this presentation. We're not going to use the word victim.
mm, that's right.
We're going to use the word recruit,
Indeed,
and
and there's a
that is.
reason for that. Yeah.
Mhm. Go ahead and.
Sorry, no, I said there was a reason for that. When I was doing my research, I actually came across the word recruit instead of victim, and I really thought about it because I don't like the idea that I was a victim, even though I was.
Mhm.
I don't like the idea, but it's also, I think recruit represents the coldness of the relationship. You're not, that person isn't in love with you.
Yeah,
That person isn't going to treat you right. They have recruited you because you are their supply, you are their oxygen, and no
you're
matter,
their
no,
source. You're the
yeah,
source. You're
you,
you are
you're their oxygen.
right. You're their supply.
Mm,
They get from you what they need, that rush, that high, that dopamine, that comes along with the things that they do to you.
exactly, and it doesn't matter if it's a positive or a negative interaction. They just need that supply.
Right. Mhm.
And leaving a relationship is probably the most difficult thing a person can do if they get out. If they get out.
Right. Yeah. So we're going to start the actual presentation here with some statistics. And you said that um, you were taken back by what you found.
Yeah. There it is in front of you. 1 in 5 adults.
Domestic.
1 in 5. So every 5 people that you know, at least one of them is experiencing some form of abuse. 1 in 4 women and 1 in 6 men worldwide. In the UK, 1.7 million women and 6,990 men all abused. And those are just the statistics that we know because this isn't getting reported. It isn't getting talked about.
I think there's that stigma when it comes to, again, that demasculization of men who don't report it because, you know, how horrible. Okay, domestic abuse is horrible enough when it is a man on a woman, but when it's a woman on a man, that's not reported a lot because of the social stigma, and the demasculization of the recruit.
Yeah, and even in gay relationships as well, man on man or woman on woman, you know, that's going to be difficult to report too. So really, we don't know. We don't know. The research that I've come up with is a third of the world's women have been through some sort of domestic abuse in their life, but we don't know with men. And there again, 48,800 women were killed in their partners.
Mm.
by their partners, sorry, in 2022.
Wow.
Just look at that number. It makes
And
me feel sick.
but in reality, all of these numbers are preventable, aren't they?
Absolutely. I believe that this education needs to go out to schools. I don't know how, I don't know when. We're just two little us's. And a lot of people talk about abuse when they've come out of it. When you come out of an abusive relationship, you do all the research that you can to understand what's going on. But no one thinks to look at it before they get into it. And it needs to
Well,
be talked about.
no, because I mean, unless you experience it, that's not something that, um, how do I say? So if you have a stable relationship as a role model, say mom and dad have never been divorced, they've been married for umpteen years, grandma and grandpa never get divorced, they've been married for umpteen years, you have a stable source of what to expect out of marriage or what to expect out of a relationship.
Yeah,
So when you go into it, this is what you go into. I'm going into this marriage, I'm going into this relationship to have one like my grandparents, to have one like my mom and dad. You don't go into a relationship knowing the signs because they've never been shown to you. You've never experienced abuse to actually know what to look for. And even if you have gone into it knowing what to look for, a lot of the signs it can be missed because these guys and girls are good.
they're good. They're
I
good.
remember thinking to myself many times, how is Mark so good? Did he
Yeah.
read a book? Did he read a manual? How is he so good at manipulation and hurting me and having no conscience?
Yeah. And what's weird is that without communicating with each other, these people have a pattern. And the pattern is the same. This is why it's so easy to spot when you've come out of it. I mean, I can walk down the street now and there are certain buzzwords that you'll hear throughout this show. Um, but I forgot what I was going to say now. I'd walk down the street and I've got hypervigilance. I can spot somebody that is a wrong 'un literally from a mile away by
Wow.
body language, by the way that they look in your eye or don't look in your eye, by the way they speak to you. Um, Certainly, men on women, the way that they look at you, you can tell, you can see it straight away. Whereas before I was in the relationship, I might have been flattered by men, looking at me in a certain way, and that's
Mm,
ego. The one thing that
right,
I think that's important to say is a lot of this is preventable if we have our egos in touch as well. The recruit or victim, whatever word we want to use, has an ego too,
mm,
and the manipulator knows how to hone into that ego. It's like the other common denominator is that people who have grown up in dysfunctional families, um, emotionally may mm, what are the right words? Their emotions may not be educated enough to know what a good relationship looks like, and
exactly.
they will walk into this thinking, we grew up in the 80s and all the romantic films are all like, oh, it's brilliant. There are these great gestures, these great big signs of I love you. And
Right,
I think certainly for myself, subconsciously, I had some sort of expectation that that was going to happen to me. I was going to
right,
have the happily ever after. I
right,
was going to live the imperial dream, so to speak. And flattery got him everywhere. And I
right.
didn't even know it.
For a time, yeah, I can say that. That was, the flattery, the chivalry, the niceness, always wanting to know how I was feeling, and not realizing that I myself was giving my abuser all the tools he needed to
Yeah,
abuse me.
exactly, exactly.
Because he was a
Within,
fantastic listener,
yeah,
and he was
and they
always
are.
interested. But
They're
and
they're
the more
they're
I
they're
opened
observant.
yeah, the
Sorry,
more I
sis.
opened up to him about my past and about my family and about my family life and all this, I was giving him all the tools he needed to abuse me and control me and to to physically, mentally, and spiritually knock me down.
Yeah, yeah. That's exactly the same that happened to me. And retrospectively, he gave me no information about himself.
Right. Right.
You know, I
You
didn't
know,
even know the man.
yeah, because I mean, bits and parts I knew. And what's crazy about it is over the years, like it wasn't for 5 years. I was his mom when I lost my mom. His mom stepped in. It was, she when he would kick me out or beat me up, she would actually hide me at her house without anybody knowing it. And I had his family was his family, and when it got cut off, I lost everything. I
Mm,
lost every support system I had. But before that happened, his mom actually sent me an email apologizing for him because the whole family knew how he was.
yeah, yeah. And I hate to say it, but mothers make the monsters. It's really, 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 really common. Well, we've all seen the film Psycho. It's really, really, really common, and I don't know why. I don't know whether it's certainly for my ex, he was the favourite. He was the youngest of the family. He was bullied by his siblings because he was the favourite, and everybody knew he was the favourite. And I don't know whether that gave him some sense of grandeur, in his
Yeah,
subconscious as he grew up. He was also a terrified little man as well. He
hmm,
had this sense of grandeur, but only to me. I once went to court with him because we worked at a homeless hostel together, and that there was some incident that happened at the hostel that required him to go to court, and I went to support him, and he was a gibbering wreck, an absolute gibbering wreck. I was shocked because he was so superior to me for me. To watch this man almost crumble in front of a judge actually made me laugh. It was
wow.
like, "What?" And they're scared of authority. They're scared of authority because they know that authority will probably see them
See
in
them for
some
what they
way.
are. Yeah,
See them for what
that's
they are.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. So there are stages of abuse.
Mm. And there they are. The idealization stage, that is the stage where they pander to our ego.
Okay.
That is the stage where we get flattered. We get put up on a pedestal only to be brought right back down again. And we
That's
get put up on that
you could say
pedestal.
that's the grooming stage.
The grooming stage, indeed,
Mhm.
indeed, yes. Yeah, yeah,
Well, the honeymoon, the grooming stage, the honeymoon stage, the the getting to know you. You don't get to know them, but they get to know you in this stage. And then
yeah.
once
And
all of these people,
I used to say to at the beginning of our relationship, it was honest and given I'm ashamed of it, but I was married, the relationship that I had with my first husband was like a brother and sister relationship. We were best friends, but we weren't married, so to speak, intimately. That was because I had really severe endometriosis growing up. So we developed a relationship that we did music ministry together. we did a lot of creative stuff together, and we were really good friends. But there was the intimate side of our marriage that wasn't there, and that's where he stepped in. You know, he worked with me for a year, and I didn't even notice him, but he already knew everything about me because I used to talk to his brother. I got on really, really well with his brother, and we worked night shifts, and I'd talk to his brother, and of course he'd be listening. But I didn't notice him. He was so quiet and in the background
Hmm.
that I don't even know how I got with him. Even to this day, I don't even know. He was not my type, the complete opposite of what my type is. If you know, if we have a type, so to speak.
Right.
Um, and I still look at well, I don't purposely, but Facebook kindly reminds me
Yeah.
of you know,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Facebook.
It does.
Thanks, Facebook. It kindly reminds me that of what I was in, and I look, and I'm like, what on earth was I doing?
Yeah.
What on earth was I doing? You know, the man's got dead eyes.
Yeah.
Then I
Yes.
realise
Yes.
my love is being reflected back. I'm loving myself through him.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about that later and
Yeah.
that whole mirroring it. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to put this one up here because this is the brainwashing of it. You know, they they groom you because at first when the abuse starts, they're so sorry for it
Mm,
and it'll never happen again.
yeah.
And I I've never been in an abusive relationship before, Mark, ever. My
Mm,
first husband was never abusive with me. None of my boyfriends after my first marriage was ever abusive. Mark was the first. And I
yeah.
can
Same here.
remember the time when uh, we, he, I can remember looking back now, not during the relationship, but a lot of the hindsight that I have now. I remember the first time that that red flag went up and I ignored it.
Mm,
I absolutely remember it. Um,
yeah,
and
I do too. I
yeah,
remember it too. And other people, men and women that I've spoken to, when they look back, within the first 10 minutes, the red flags were there and
yeah,
we ignored them, you know, and,
we
and
ignored them. Yeah, we ignored them. We yeah, yeah.
our
Or
gut brain.
made excuses for it. Oh, he had a
Yeah,
bad day. He was drinking.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, I made him mad. I did something to cause this reaction from him. It was my fault.
yeah,
And I can remember through the whole entire 5 years after, broken ribs, broken nose, black eyes. I'd have welts on the top of my head to the point where I couldn't even, because he was good at leaving marks where nobody would see them.
yeah,
And, getting in the shower and wincing just to wash my hair. And I can remember um, thinking if I could love him just a little bit more,
yeah.
putting that on myself.
Mm,
It's not him that it's me. It's because I don't
yeah,
love him enough. But if I could just love him just a little bit more, one day he'll
yeah,
wake up and he'll look over at me and he'll be like, this is, I'm wrong and I shouldn't be doing this. It never happened, but looking back on it now, I mean, that was the way I was justifying it. It was me. It wasn't Mark.
there's a massive mistake I think many women, if they're honest, make, and that is they think that they can change their man.
Yes.
We can't change anyone but ourselves.
Right.
We can't
Exactly.
change anyone but ourselves, and we need to keep saying that to ourselves, you know? It's
But they're
it's so
sweet
important.
talkers. They
Say
are
again?
they're sweet talkers. They
Yeah.
have a way of speaking, and uh, you know, Nikki, when you sent me the outline for tonight's presentation, and I got to the part about the NLP, the neuro linguistic programming, I was floored. I had never
Yeah,
associated that with the domestic abuse until today.
yeah, yeah. There we go. What I'd like to say is, as we're talking, we're putting up these slides. There is a lot of information in these slides, and we're not going to go through every single part because this will go on forever. But we would advise people to screenshot or photograph the slides so that they can look back at them in their own time.
Let me try to find the NLP one. Don't I have it? Uh, 1 second. I swore I had the NLP one. Let me see.
I can read it out.
No, what happened to it? Hmm.
Neurolinguistic programming. Like neurolinguistic programming, a perpetrator's aim is to change the way a recruit behaves and thinks in order to gain control of the relationship. The recruit has no idea, and at the end of the relationship, they will find themselves like a rabbit in headlights while going through a mind bending realization with a dash of cognitive dissonance. And let me tell you, nobody wants to go through cognitive dissonance, it's painful. But this happens when the recruit they realize that they've become victim to a monster. A recruit can recover, however, the traumatized brain just adapts and stays in flight mode, leaving the recruit constantly hypervigilant and exhausted. And that's something that I can testify to. Like I said, I can walk down the street, my hypervigilance is off the scale sometimes. Mindfulness and well-being, although I don't really like those words, they are crucial for a person leaving a toxic relationship. It is vital that a survivor of domestic abuse gets a support network around themselves because connection is the antidote to abuse. Self referral for trauma based therapy will help a survivor when on the road to recovery.
All right. I'm gonna
And
go back to the.
there's neuro-linguistic programming going on in the world. You know, COVID was a really good example of that. You know, they ingrained in us the repeat cycle all the time. We had the authority. Sorry, Lloyd, could you bring up that slide again, please? The
Which
one
one?
with the one with the head and the brain on it saying authority. That's it. So during COVID, you know, we can now recognize that there was a stage of authority, then there was the stage of repetition. Here we had hands, face, space. I don't know what you had over there, but there was always three words and they were repeated to us probably every 5 minutes on the news. We were bombarded with it.
Same
Then
here.
the isolation stage, you know, we were all locked in. We were all locked in. And I'll say one thing about the isolation stage and COVID: domestic abuse
Yes.
statistics
Oh,
accelerated,
yeah.
accelerated through the roof, to the point that in this country, they actually did let people who were leaving domestic abuse to move around the country. That was the one thing. The degradation stage, again, you know, in COVID, people that were talking the truth about COVID were getting bashed down. We were getting bashed down. We were conspiracy theorists. You
Hmm.
know, we've got to take, you know, the dependents, we've got to take the jab. You know, it's the same thing. Codependence happens in a toxic relationship. They degrade us. The first time they lay hands on us is when they degrade us. And it happened really, really, really quickly in my relationship. I'd say within the first month it happened. I went out with him. Some of his family were there. We were playing pool. We all had a bit too much to drink. I knew his family members through work and I was just chatting to them. I wasn't being flirtatious. I was just being me, just chatting, playing pool. He didn't like me talking to other men. He had a real issue talking to other men. And I went to the toilet. I came out of the toilet and he was standing there, and it was like he was a peacock, his chest was out. He was much taller than normal. And with the sleight of his hand, I didn't even notice it. It was so quick. He had me by my neck up against the wall. And I didn't know what hit me. I was
Mhm.
terrified, absolutely terrified. And he did this in public. Nobody did anything. Nobody said anything. It's almost like it's accepted in some cultures. My partner, he said that men need to start calling men out. These abusive men, real men, need to grow a set, and they need to help us out and start growing. Calling. Um,
But doesn't that go against the bro code?
yeah,
I mean,
it
when you
does.
think about it, you
It
don't
does.
you don't call out your brother. You don't take sides because what's the old saying? Bros before hoes.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And it's really hard. It's really, really hard for a what I'll call a real man. They can watch things, but I think that they feel helpless. Like you say, they've been emasculated. The
Yeah.
Jezebel spirit. We can talk for hours about the Jezebel spirit,
Yes,
but
we
the
can.
spirit of
Woo!
Jezebel,
Yes, we
is,
can. Yes,
it's
uh,
destructive.
it
It's
is.
it's killing our men.
Mm, definitely, definitely.
Yeah. And the
So,
narcissistic spirit as well. They go hand in hand together. The
mhm.
the world is rife. I, I don't want to get too over the top, but it almost seems like these empty vessels are becoming possessed. That it's too odd the way that the cycles are the same. Every situation, authority, repetition, isolation, degradation, dependence. Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat,
Right,
rinse,
right.
repeat. I lost count
And
how
the
many
more they
times
get
I
away
lost.
with it, and the more they get away with it, and the more that they can go on without being noticed, without being discovered, and because there's a point that you get, the recruit gets to the point where they stop fighting back, and they almost come to the realization that what, I'm if I fight back, it gets worse. So if I don't do anything, that it'll help. So I mean, you go into that whole situation there too.
No, exactly, exactly. And I don't think that I've brought it up in this particular slideshow that I sent you, but sorry, it's very late in the morning here. It's 3 o'clock, nearly 3 o'clock in the morning. So my brain's not functioning. Um, yeah, the recruit. Well, so I listened to a lot of videos. I did a lot of reading, a lot of research into abusive relationships, and I discovered that when they first lay hands on you, or when they first degrade you, and your gut says, "I need to leave this person," you leave. They then, another buzzword, start to breadcrumb you. They might send you a text saying, "How are you?" And that's a hook. It's a way to get you back in again. They want to see
Oh
if
yeah.
you're going to give them another chance. And when we go back, that's when we are in danger. They actually despise us for going back to them, and they take that hate out on us. And the longer we stay, the worse it gets. I did it for 12 years, and I was beaten down to nothing at the end of it. And even at the end of it, that the last time, I mean, I left him more times than I care to remember. It was
Okay.
actually a standing joke. Oh, Nikki's thrown him out again, and I just kept taking him
Hmm.
back and taking him back thinking the love's going to get stronger because we're going to get through this together. We're soulmates because
Yeah. Yeah.
you told me that you were my soulmate at the beginning of this relationship. I believe that.
Yeah.
Mm,
The
you
last
know?
2 years of that my relationship, I'd never been unpacked.
Mm,
It was a revolving door.
mm, yeah. Yeah. It was like, I mean, I had the foresight to we were renting our houses, and I had the foresight to have the rent put only in my name, so I didn't ever lose the house. But when I left the relationship, my house and my son and myself became vulnerable. They tried to take my child from me. His
I
whole
remember that.
family
Yep.
bullied me. They, for some reason, my front garden got set on fire,
Hmm.
and I woke up. It was actually around, I think, Obama, that they were doing the elections, and Obama was getting in for the second phase of his presidency, and I wanted to watch it, so I tried staying up all night, and I fell asleep on the sofa, and I was woken up by this commotion going on outside my house, and I'm like, what on earth is going on? Half awake, I open my curtain windows, and I see all these firemen in my front garden, and I was like, what's going on? Oh, firemen.
Right. Fireman
Yeah, it's
kept
like,
again.
oh, wow, am I dreaming?
Right.
And I opened my window and I said, what on earth's going on? And they said, well, your front garden's been set on fire. And I'm like, well, how are you here? I've been asleep on the sofa. And they said, oh, somebody called us from a phone box. And I thought about it for a minute, and I thought, hold on a minute, everybody nowadays carries mobile phones. Why would someone phone you from a phone box to say
Right.
that my garden's on fire? And where are all the people? Because whenever a fire happens, the entire neighborhood comes out to see.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There were no people there. So
Huh.
I had people that I knew from his family that came into my house, and my son was there, and it was like, hello, who are you? And it was like they ran away. It's just absolute crazy stuff leaving that relationship. Absolute crazy stuff. And I don't want people to go through that. Going through a relationship is one thing, coming out of it is something
Right.
else.
Right.
It's something
Exactly.
else.
Exactly.
So we're going to carry on with this presentation to show you the warning signs.
Right.
So
I just what's on the screen right now is the fact that nobody is immune from abuse. It doesn't matter what
nobody,
your social status is, what your economic status is, what your sexual orientation is. Everybody is a potential recruit.
everybody that doesn't know.
Right.
And,
Everybody who
and even
doesn't know.
those that do know are potential recruits as well.
Right.
Some people, the mad thing about it, I don't want to go too much into my childhood, but I didn't have a good relationship with my mother. And I grew up treading on eggshells. And there was some sort of familiarity and comfort in that relationship because I was always treading on eggshells because I was used to it.
Mm.
And that's what
So
made me such a good recruit. That's what kept me going back, because somewhere the Eminem song with Rihanna, "I Love the Way You Lie,"
yeah. Yeah.
there's almost like an addiction that happens with a recruit.
Yes. I know. Yes, you're right.
It's very
It
difficult to
well
explain.
for me it was the addiction of trying to change it.
Yes,
But in the trying to change him, I was the one that changed.
yeah,
You know,
you lost
um,
yourself.
yeah. I mean, I could see when he was, it was weird because I could tell in my spirit, it was almost like I could tell that this is going, okay, it's now, right, this is a turning point. Now it's going to start getting bad. And then I would try
Mm,
to like backpedal it. I would try to like, you know, change the conversation, change the atmosphere of what was going on. Um, and I knew that his brother, so his brother knew this whole time how his brother was. He knew that he was abusive, and
mm,
it was almost like he would trigger his brother knowing what was going to
mm,
happen when I would get home.
mm,
So I was hyper vigilant on the topic of conversation, the attitudes of the people having the conversation, and the tone of voice that was being used
yes.
constantly.
Yeah. Yeah. The first time I had my ex arrested, I had nowhere to go, so I had him arrested, and there was no plan. I'd been isolated from everyone. My relationship with my family wasn't great. I had him arrested. I was pregnant. He'd laid hands on my throat, had me up against the wall again. Alcohol used to trigger him a lot, and it
Yeah,
used to take 20. I used to think he's drinking, right? So for the next 24 hours, I need to be on alert
correct.
because it was almost like alcohol he had an allergic reaction, that Jekyll and
Yep.
Hyde thing.
I could see it in his eyes.
Yeah,
I could see his
yeah,
eyes glaze over, and I knew this is going to get bad.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So the first time I had him arrested, I was pregnant. It was a really, really, really hot day, and his family descended upon the house, and this became a pattern. Every time I threw him out, the entire family used to come
Yep.
just to put me down and
Yep.
help him because
Yep.
I'm such a cow. So this one day, I'm sitting out in the garden, the family descend on the house, and they were pretty abusive to me to start with, but then, I'm like, but he did this and he did that, and I'm pregnant, and they sat me down, and then one of them, the niece, yeah, she then went on to tell me in specific detail all the things that he did with his other exes. The first person that he had children with, um, she told me stories of them throwing televisions at each other.
Hmm.
Really, really, really violent stuff. And then the next person, it's like, oh, she hit him with a shoe because he had his hands around her neck, and they were talking like it was normal.
Right.
There was no like, oh my
So
God, he's done
that's
this.
what I mean. Mark's family, they were well aware of his continue. I mean, I wasn't the first.
No, I wasn't the first, and I certainly
And
wasn't the
I'm sure,
last.
yeah, yeah. And that's another thing that bothers me is knowing that there could be someone out there that he's abusing like he did me, and that hurts.
It really hurts. And the first woman, when I finally threw him out, he got into a relationship 2 weeks. Now, I've been married to this man for 12 years, and 2 weeks after I said, enough, this is enough, he got straight into another relationship with somebody else. And I tried to warn her. But you're
Yeah.
the crazy ex, and we will go into this. When you
Exactly.
try
You're
to
the crazy
warn
one.
them, you come across as being crazy because they've told them that you're crazy.
Right. Yeah,
And
exactly.
in a way, you are crazy because they've made you that way. You know,
Exactly. Exactly.
PTSD makes you do some really strange things.
Exactly. That is so true. It can make you do things that you normally wouldn't.
Yeah, and being in a relationship like that, that you get changed to the point where I am not a violent person at all, but in that relationship, I when he had his affairs, I did hit out. you know? That's not me. That's not me. And
Well, you know what, Nikki, looking, I was a fool.
yeah.
I knew he was cheating on me. You know, there was one time that we were laying in bed, and I was laying in his arms, and he said to me, um, of all the girls, you know, you're my favorite. And I thought to myself, that is probably the most honest thing he ever said in our entire relationship. This is hindsight. This is hindsight.
Mm,
I used to catch him all the time. I'd walk in the house. I blinded myself. I put on blinders. When uh when we broke up, and like I said, I got married shortly, not even just a few months after that relationship broke up, I went and was friends with somebody else, and I don't even know how that abusive. To tell you, I don't even know how that happened. I ended up marrying that guy. But um, I literally um, would would just sit back and look and think of all the things, all the times that the red flag went up, and that I
mm.
chose to ignore it. I willingly chose to ignore it. So after I left my second husband, which was the one after Mark, the abusive relationship after Mark, and I came here to Chicago, and I am with my husband now, Dave. Everybody knows him. Um,
Hello, Dave.
he's that, and I couldn't ask for a more stable and loving environment. This is my, I'd say this is my reward, because I mean, I don't deserve uh, the life that I have. But anyway, so
You
I
do
had,
deserve it.
yeah, but I had some papers that I had kept of Mark's, because I just, he went to prison. It was a big thing. And so I mailed them back to him from my address here in Chicago, because I figured it was safe. And he mailed me back a letter. And it's funny because it was, and I'm going to use air quotes here, it was an apology letter. But he was sorry that anything he did was never good enough for me. I tried taking you to concerts. I tried doing this, and we did this, and we did that. And I'm thinking to myself, did you live the same life I did?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, but
That apology letter was, again, that term breadcrumbing. We never get rid of our abusers. This is something
no.
that people need to understand. If you get into an abusive relationship, you are a supply to that person, and they will
Mhm.
keep you on the back burner. And I've heard stories of people 10, 20 years later, the abuser gets back in touch and
Yeah,
breadcrumbs, hooks someone in, gives them a bit of flattery. And before they know it, they find themselves back in that relationship again.
exactly. Exactly. And that's why we want to talk to you guys today about some of these red flags and educate you on what to look for, right?
Absolutely. This is the most important thing, education.
Right. Want to go over some of these red flags, because
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you, this floored me when I read this part of it, because I had to have been the most naive person going into this relationship.
I
I
know.
What was I swear, did he must have, he was, oh my gosh, go ahead. Oh my goodness.
I know. I know.
Oh,
You do, it does make you laugh at yourself because you're like, what? What? Sis,
I I
read out
I
these
thought
red
I was
flags.
smarter than this.
Yeah,
But the term red flag signifies a reason to stop, doesn't it?
absolutely. And why don't we? Why don't we stop? Why don't we listen to our gut? Our gut is it's the brain within ourselves that I guess that's where it keeps us safe, doesn't it? Our gut response, it keeps us safe. If we ignore that, we know we always get into trouble. I remember as a young adult, young teenager, You know, if I do this, I know I'm going to get into trouble with my mum. Oh, well, I'm going to do it anyway.
Right,
Bang, I'm in trouble. Oh, no, what on earth did I do that for? You
right.
know,
And
we must stop.
so we've all heard of red flags. We've all heard that term, these red flags, that red flag. Red flags are associated with danger. Those are danger signs. It says here that red flags are thrown in sports when the game is halted because of a foul. Red light signal us to stop our vehicles on the roads, and red tape cautions us from going beyond a certain point. In toxic relationships, red flags are signs that a perpetrator can't or won't have a healthy relationship, and proceeding down the road together would be potentially physically and emotionally dangerous for the recruit. And it says if a possible recruit saw 4 or 5 red flags in a potential mate, it is a sign to run. However, if only 1 or 2 flags appear, it could be a reason to start an honest discussion about boundaries. Now, you got in here orange and yellow flags.
Yes. Well, until yesterday, I didn't actually even know about orange and yellow flags, and I think that they're a topic that we need to cover as well, but not today. But I would encourage the listeners to look up orange and yellow flags as well, because they're the subtle things. Um, Trying to think of an example. When I was putting this presentation together, alcohol and drug addiction came up, and I wasn't sure whether I should put it into this presentation. I actually decided to take it out because it's not necessarily a red flag, but it could be a red flag. If somebody drinks too much or
Mhm.
takes drugs,
You want to
they might
know? You want to
they
know
might
a
get
red
you into
flag
it.
that I now have in my toolbox?
Mm,
And I mean, I don't foresee myself ever having to like use this again. I'm like I said, I'm very happy marriage. Dave is I even if something God forbid were to happen to him, or if we were to ever separate or anything, I would never get married again. And that's God's honest truth. But here's the thing: is this is something because of several relationships, not all abusive, but some did have red flags before
yeah.
before it. Um, and this you can take this as a joke, guys. You can take this any way you want. But if he's over 40, never been married, and has no kids, run fast and run far because there's something wrong with him.
And if he lives with his mother as well.
Mother. Okay. I mean, you can you can chuckle at that. You can say roll your eyes at it, whatever. But in my experience, if he is over 40, never been married, doesn't have any children, and lives with mom, run fast, run far.
However, if he has been in several relationships and has several children with several different women,
That can
that
also be
also is an indicator to run,
right,
because
right,
my ex has 6 children with 3 no, 4 different women.
right, right. Yeah, I mean, these are toxic traits, right?
They are,
They are.
they are.
What's another one says? If the potential partner is unable to respect boundaries or communicate honesty, a recruit may find themselves in an abusive cycle. Red flags in a relationship may not be obvious to a recruit. While some are very clear, many might present more as a clue or a hint that there is an underlying problem. It is common for a recruit to ignore red flags. In fact, the perpetrator depends on the recruit's ignorance at the beginning of the potential relationship. Once the potential recruit is identified and shows willingness to begin the journey with perpetrators, the recruit becomes a source of supply to that abuser. And that's true.
It
They
is.
are depending on us to ignore those signs. And once you start ignoring them, that gives them the green light, doesn't it?
It does. It does. You're basically saying abuse me.
I don't want people to think that that is us blaming the recruit or blaming, the quote unquote victim. That is not what we're doing. We're not victim shaming. We're not doing any of that. But it does give the abuser the green light to go ahead and to continue down that road.
Yeah.
And every time he pushes those boundaries, because I used to say, if he hits me one more time, and then it would happen, and I would like, one more time, one more time. And when I kind of smirked a little bit when you said the first time I had him arrested.
Yeah. No.
Okay. Well, I kind of chuckled because that was the same thing. I can't tell you how many times I had Mark
Yeah.
arrested. I had him
Yeah.
arrested so many times that one of the times after they took him, the detective came back to my house and told me, Lori, if you let him back in, I'm going to come here and I'm, he's like, I'm going to shake the shit out of you,
You
and I
become
had
a joke with the police as well. That's the problem.
right, right,
That's the problem
exactly.
because
And,
you make your statement, and then you withdraw it. You make your statement, then you withdraw it. You make your
right,
statement, and then you withdraw it. And then in the end, you just don't bother phoning the police.
right. You just don't
So
bother.
cut out the middleman.
Exactly. I can remember the one time, um, he had me down, and I blacked out. I don't remember it. All I remember is fighting for my life. Basically, he was killing me, and
Mm,
I got away from him. I called the police. The police came. They had me along. They had me at the side of the house, and I was hysterical. I was crying. My neck was swollen, and the one of the cops, real jerk, came up to me and he said, "Mark's got marks. He's got marks on his body." He's like, and I knew that what that meant was they were taking me to jail too. And
yeah,
I started crying. I looked at him and I said, I have claustrophobia. He was killing me. I was scratching for my, I didn't know what I was scratching. I didn't know if I was scratching the wall, the bed. I didn't know. He had me face down, and kind of like on my side, but my face was in a pillow. And my hands were flailing, and I must have contacted with him, and he was trying to say, see, look at the marks on me, but
yeah.
the cops had been there so many times they didn't believe him, thankfully.
My ex, when I discovered about his affairs, the first he had simultaneous affairs with people. Um, yeah, but anyway, the first time I discovered, um, he actually it was actually on my birthday. I'd ignored the signs of affairs for about 3 months, and on my birthday, the film The Woman in Black came out in the UK, and the director who directed the film was giving like a Q&A talk after the film. So I was really excited to go because read the book and I'd seen the play. Really, really wanted to hear what the director said. But there was something wrong on the journey to that cinema. I felt something wrong in my bones, and like he was on his phone, and it felt like he was being a bit secretive on his phone,
Yep.
and the phone kept going off, and I'm thinking, man, you don't have this many friends. What's going on? I'm driving, trying to look and see what's being written, and that night we got home on my birthday. Um, he was very tidy. Now I'm an artist and I'm probably the most untidy, explosive person there is. But he was very tidy, quite OCD in his ways. But he was trying to hide his phone, and he got all of his clothes and folded them all up really, really neatly right by the side of his bed, and hid his phone inside the folds of the clothes. So he'd gone to sleep, and I picked up the whole pile of clothes, took them out of the bedroom, found his phone, got onto his Facebook Messenger, couldn't see anything on there, and I'm like, he's deleted everything. There's no text messages, there's no Facebook messages. This is weird. So I just kept fishing around on his phone, and I came across his emails, and the silly man, he had forgotten to turn the notifications off from Facebook to your emails. So Facebook will email you with every notification. We'd
Yes.
forgotten to turn that off. So
Yep.
that's how I caught him. And I read
Yep.
all these emails, and I found that he was with two women, um, using a lot of texting or sexting, as I
Mm,
should call it. Um,
mhm.
so it was about this time in the morning, like 3 o'clock in the morning. He was asleep, and I threw his phone at him, and I said, "You better get up and explain this." And he was shaking. He didn't know what had hit him, because he thought that he was getting away with this.
Yeah.
And he got himself together. I put the kettle on and I made a cup of tea and I sat him down and I said, "You better tell me what's going on." And he convinced me that these women were haranguing him. And I believed him. I believed him. And for 2 weeks, it was like he messed so deep within my mind. I didn't know what I was doing, and I remember one time I was in the car with him and my darling child. He was only a little one, and I was driving and I started speeding up, and I just thought, I'm going to smash this car into the wall if he doesn't tell me what's going on. And I started to scream at him, "Tell me what's going on, tell me what's going on." He didn't. He left me in that kind of state for 2 weeks. And the loveliness of all of this was that on Valentine's Day, he decides to tell me about one of them. It's like, cheers, dude. Cheers. My birthday, I find out on Valentine's Day. You just destroyed 2 days. Not that I'm the great big Valentine's kind of person, but that's not the point. He
Right.
destroyed it. He destroyed it. And threw him out. The whole family came, threw him out. And this was the time where I hit him and I had a giant ring on my finger. And I marked, drew blood on his face with my ring. And he told my son for years, you remember your mama hit me.
Yeah.
And it was like that was all Ryan could remember. It was block out his name, sorry, shouldn't have said that. That was all he could remember about the relationship. And then one day he had this he went, "Mummy, Daddy used to hurt you." And this all came from the abuse never used to happen in front of any of his children or my child, um,
Mhm.
except for this one time he threw a cup at my son and then got me up against the wall. And my son, he was about 7, 8 years old, rugby tackled that man off me. Now that man was a beast of a man. And he rugby tackled him off me and he said, "You leave my mummy alone."
Yeah.
And it was at that moment I realized, oh my God, oh my
Right.
God, that this is
That's
time to leave,
that's the one thing
and
I'm grateful for is that we never had kids. None of my kids were with me at that time. It was just him and I, and but he still had me in that whole dependence of him. I didn't work. I was going to college at the time. I was kind of dependent on him, kind of thing.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just grateful we didn't have any kids. There was no kids that saw it. But I mean, like we said at the top of the show, you and I have been friends for almost 15 years, I
14
guess.
years.
And so I know I was, your son was little when we
Mm,
met.
mm. He was tiny. He's massive now.
Yeah, yes, he is.
Yeah. Anyway, what's the next slide that we've got?
The next one is the love bombing. Hold on a second. Red flags. Yeah, love bombing.
Okay, so there are quite a few terms that people may not be familiar with. I noticed that some people in the chat have mentioned about boundaries and that. We will cover that a little bit later on. But these terms, love bombing, flying monkeys. I can't think, there are loads of terms that people may be unfamiliar with. Familiarize yourself
Gaslighting.
with them.
Gaslighting was one that I didn't even know about until years after him and I were broken up. Dave told me about what gaslighting was, and I looked it up, and I was like, oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mm.
if you don't know what you're experiencing, then you know
You don't know what to look for.
you know what to look for, right?
Mm.
But love bombing is, I can you read the screen? I'm just gonna make sure. So anybody who's watching us over on your phones, over on YouTube, anybody watching us on YouTube, if you get your phones, if you make your screen, if you turn it so it's not up and down, so it's like
Landscape.
so it's horizontal, you'll be able to read them much better. You'll lose the chat for a few minutes, but if you just turn your phone and do that, and then when you click on it, there should be like a square at the bottom, above the red dot, and you just click that, and they'll turn it back to the up and down version. So, but if you want to follow along with us and you read about love bombing,
Yeah, love bombing. I had no idea what it was.
yeah, I didn't either.
That it almost is romantic.
It's
It's
the
what
honeymoon phase.
it is. It is the
Yeah.
honeymoon phase. Yeah, you have those feelings of the relationship's too good to be true. And I used to say to him when we were first together, it feels like you sprinkled some sort of fairy dust on me,
Mm-hmm.
because the feelings that I had were alien to me. They were so intense, so
Right.
intense. And he felt like my soulmate, even though we had nothing in common, he felt like my soulmate.
Right. Right. Yeah. No,
You
I
know?
mean, but the thing of it is when they're getting to know you, like in that first, and it can be different for everybody. It could be the first few hours, few days, few weeks, few months, whatever it is. However long they take to groom you, they love bomb you. They laugh at your jokes,
Yeah.
which eventually turns into eye rolls and disgust.
Yeah. Well, they use them against you in the end.
Oh, they do.
Yeah.
They will maybe give you gifts,
Yeah.
or you might say, Chinese food is my favorite food, and they will be like, let's go out and get Chinese tonight, hon.
Yeah.
They give you these gifts, and this is their love bombing stage. And this,
Yeah.
if you read every single, and it's not just domestic violence, it's other abuses as well, whether it's SA or SRA or anything like that, or even when you get into the ritualistic abuse, that you're hearing about on the news now when it comes to the elites or Hollywood. Every single one starts with love bombing.
Yeah.
Every
Yeah.
form of abuse starts with this point of love
Yeah.
bombing.
It's the bonding phase. We bond to them, and they show massive romantic gestures. My house looked like a flipping florist. Yeah, he bought me flowers all the time, bombarded me with flowers because he knew I liked flowers.
Mm-hmm.
I remember complaining about my first husband. He wasn't particularly good at cooking or washing up, and I used to find myself doing a lot of that in that marriage. So he used to cook for me, and he used to wash up afterwards. And I thought, this is the greatest man on earth.
I have
What
hit the
man does
jackpot.
this?
Yep, I have hit the jackpot.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. Exactly. It's like they somehow they extract all of this information out of us and they use it.
And you don't even know they're doing it.
No,
It just,
no,
it just,
you're just like all bleary eyed and like, ooh, oh my man, he's wonderful.
right. I think that, I want everybody to read this slide up here, but I think that the last one is the most powerful, and that says love bombing gives false hope of a real and loving relationship.
Because that relationship, no matter how long it lasted, wasn't real. It just
Right.
wasn't. It just wasn't real.
And that's, the I think that's the hardest thing I've had to come to grips with in these the last two relationships before Dave, was the fact that, and now I'm not even going to include the marriage, because that was a farce from the beginning. That was a rebound that never should have happened. But with Mark, it was the fact that, um, I to me it was real. To
Yeah,
me, he was my soulmate. To me, I did everything I could to make that relationship work. To
yeah.
me, it was, you know, I unfortunately, so much time has gone by that I sometimes find myself forgetting the bad things and only remembering the good things. And I think you had mentioned earlier about sometimes how, um, they wait years and then they contact you again
Yeah,
to try to reel you in again. I
yeah.
think that's what happens. I think that we forget, whether it's because our brains are protecting us from that trauma, that we
Mm.
forget about those bad times. And
Well, it's
that's
called
dangerous.
trauma bonding.
Okay. That makes sense.
That's what it's called. There's a term for it. Yeah, yeah. But after the love bombing stage, or during the love bombing stage, certainly in my relationship, just going back to that slide, yeah, the jealousy. Oh my God, the jealousy. I don't know if it was the same for you. It it was insane. And it took me by surprise. I was absolutely knocked back by his jealousy. Um, I was sorting out selling the house that I had with my first husband. The first husband had gone to Spain, and then um, went through going through selling the house and everything. And he came back once the house was sold, to just help me clear out the furniture. And during that time, I used to get texts, I used to get voice notes, I used to get phone calls from him telling me exactly what he thought. And I can't say it on air. It was so vile,
Yeah.
telling me what he thought I was doing with my first husband. And we were just sorting out our house. That was it. But he did it with my friends as well. I was allowed one friend in that relationship, and even then, one day I went out with her and I came back late, and oh, the insinuation of our lesbian relationship that was going on in his head was sick. It was sick, and I heard every single detail of it. And now I think, well, he was just showing me what was in his mind.
Yeah.
Why didn't I pick that up? And the jealousy it continues throughout. When I worked, I became really wary of talking to men. When I was out socializing, I really stayed away from men because I was terrified that he'd find out. After he had his affairs, it was a whole different story. I was like, you can't say nothing to me now, mate.
It's interesting it's interesting you should say about when you're out in public, because, um I don't think a lot of people know the extent that other people go through with your abuse. And let me just kind of explain what I'm saying. I can remember standing in the grocery store. Okay. He would be like, I'd be like, I got to go to the grocery store and grab something for dinner. I'll be back. I'm coming right back, you know. And I would get in a line, or there would only be one cashier open and there'd be a line. And I would start getting antsy, and I get that knot in my throat, and I'm looking at my watch going, if I
Mm.
don't get home in a reasonable amount of time, he's never going to believe that I got stuck in a line.
No,
He's going
you
to
were
think
out
I'm
having an
doing
affair with someone.
right. He's going to think, God forbid if it's, I don't know about you, but I can't have an affair in 10, 15 minutes. But
No,
in his mind, you were doing something you weren't supposed to be doing in that 10 or 15 minutes. And
Yeah.
I would get so aggravated, I get so upset at these cashiers. I'm like, don't you realize I'm going to get beaten because you're going slow?
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
and I tried, throughout the jobs that I've had, after that, I try to keep that in mind. And it's like, there, you don't know what that person next to you was going through, but
No.
that was a real stress for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a stress that you don't understand.
No, I mean, well, it was a part of my life. That was you know that was my life at that point. you know
Yeah.
and then,
Yeah.
you, God forbid, if you get a ticket or something driving home. I mean, he knew that we lived 5-10 minutes away from the store or whatever. I can't remember. I don't know, 10 minutes. Say I live 8 minutes away from the store. He knew 8 and 8 was 16. I'm just running in for two things. I should be back in 25 minutes. And I come back in 35 minutes, and there's the look.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
The
I'm
look.
sorry I'm late. I'm really sorry I'm late. There was a line. I was like, they didn't have change. And it's like, and then, you replay in your head, and you're like, well, that just sounded like I was making excuses.
Yeah. 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 You know, my ex did me a favor when he had his affairs. I got some level of strength, and Heather earlier on in the comments mentioned about boundaries, and the next one on the slide says getting upset when when we put boundaries up, they get annoyed, they get upset when we start to try to take control of our lives. They don't like it. But after he had his affairs, there was my sassiness came back a little bit, and I actually met up with my first husband many years after we divorced. I went to a Christian festival, and he happened to be there. I didn't know he was going to be there, and he happened to be there, and we were just chatting, and I didn't realize the pain that I'd caused him by leaving him for this man. But I understood the pain of what it's like when somebody has an affair, and I
Right,
would never want to put anyone through that level of pain. It's horrible. It's horrible.
right,
And I I talked to my first husband at great length about how sorry I was, about doing what I did. I didn't realize I was blinded at the time. And when I got back home, I told my friend that I was allowed to have that I'd met up with my first husband, and it was all good and okay, and I apologized. And my friend, we will call her the flying monkey. Um, Again, that's another term in abuse. It's where the abuser will use that person to get information out of you. They'll use that person to manipulate you. And in this case, I literally told my friend, and I said, please don't tell his
right.
name um, about this. And within 10 minutes of him coming into the room, she blurted it out, and his face to me was like that. And I just thought to myself, I am so glad there is somebody else in the house with me right now. But I'm so glad that he knows, because now I'm like, what can you say? I just looked at him and I said, don't even say a word to me. Don't even
Right.
say a word to me. Not after what you've done. I did nothing wrong. And like I say, he did me a favor. I grew strength. It was horrible when he had his affairs, but it gave me something. It also, one of the dangers is going into chat rooms and online forums.
Mhm.
If you have a look at people that have fallen victim to somebody having an affair, they all blame themselves. It's like, oh,
Absolutely.
well, something was wrong in the relationship.
If I could have just loved him a little bit more.
Yeah, it was
If I
me.
could
Well,
have just loved
I
him a
didn't
little
do
bit
this
more,
right.
he wouldn't be looking, it didn't matter that I did everything for him. It didn't matter that, uh, they don't care. They're I honestly think that he had a sex addiction. I found out after it was over that he had been abusing drugs the whole entire time that we were together, and I believe that
Mm,
he had a sex addiction as well.
yeah, yeah.
So it wouldn't have mattered. I mean, I could have been the perfect, you know, the perfect wife or girlfriend, the perfect person. It wouldn't have mattered. He still would have cheated.
Yeah. Mine used sex as a tool. He
Cool.
used
Yeah.
sex as a tool for sure. Absolutely for sure. And it was a tool for control.
Oh,
He
absolutely.
never raped me. He never raped me or did anything like that to me. The horror stories that I hear, what other people have gone through. I thank God that I didn't have to go through that. But he I got the first time I ever had sex with him, I got coerced into it. I'm not going to go into the details of it, I wasn't ready for it.
Yeah.
And we'll come on a little bit later on about moving too fast.
Yeah.
And you say you got married within a few months. It's like
Yeah.
mine
Oh yeah.
proposed to me within 2 weeks of us kind of
Yeah.
like having our first kiss.
Yeah.
That's not
Literally,
healthy.
I mean, literally, it was like April 8th that the whole blow up with Mark and his family happened. Mark was in prison, but there was a blow up with his family. And by the end of April, I was moved in with Buddy and I was married in September.
Yeah, so common. It's so common. I refused to move in with mine for a year because I'd seen his violent side. I didn't want to subjugate myself to it, so I got myself a flat, and it was great. I was independent. I'd actually had to split up with him while I was finalising my house sale with my first husband. I had to split up with the abusing husband because his jealousy was just too much. It was uncontrollable. He even used to phone up my first husband and was vile down the phone to him. So I just said, enough's enough. This is it. I'm splitting up with you, and I did. I got on. I got my own flat. It was in a complex that had a gym and a swimming pool and a sauna, and I love swimming, and no one else used the pool, so I used to go there in the morning. And then one day, text message, how are you? That hook came in, bang, within 5 minutes, we're back together again. And I fall pregnant. And I still refused to move in with him. I had to move out of that flat to a cheaper place. And it wasn't in the best area. And back early on in the relationship, I told him about the bullying that I incurred when I was in school. Um, I have slightly olive skin, and I grew up in a very, very, very white area, and there weren't many olive-skinned people or black people around at that time. So for 5 years, I was bullied more or less every day for my colour, being called Packy all the time. You smell, you're dirty, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I told him, and as the months rolled by, he's like, move in with me, move in with me. I split up with him. I actually ended up on diazepam when I was pregnant because of the stress of it all. And then one day I got back with him. I think my PTSD had kicked in. I was very depressed, pregnant on my own with a dog, um, had lost all my connections because in my first marriage, we led a music ministry and we had a great Christian base. But as soon as I've gone off and had an affair, I was not part of the camp anymore. So
Right.
I was literally on my own, and in Manchester, and in a rough area of Manchester as well. And one day I went downstairs. The post had come, and I went to open my door, and I couldn't open it. And from the outside, it was all duct taped, so I couldn't
What?
open it. And the word "packy" was written all over this duct tape. And I'm like pulling the door, going, "What on earth is going on?" And I finally managed to open the door. The duct tape released. I opened the door, and then I met with the word "packy," and it just, it triggered me back to being a kid again. And the first thing I did was phone him up. And I'm like, "This has happened. I don't know what to do. This has happened. I'm really scared." And he went, "It's your neighbours." He never
Oh,
said, "Call the police." He never said, "There's something
yeah,
wrong." He just went immediately, "It's your neighbours.
of course, of course,
You need to move in with me."
of course.
And within
Making,
3
yeah,
days,
making your surroundings unsafe, so you feel that you're going to need him now to keep you safe. Absolutely.
yeah, and being pregnant, I felt so vulnerable. Within,
Right.
I think it was within the week, let's say, I was in a van with all my stuff. His brother-in-law and sister had come in a van to pick me up. All my stuff got put in the van. Me and him was sat in the back of the van, and he wrote a note to me saying, "I've got you now." And
Hmm.
I went cold. I went cold. I was like, "Oh my God, what have I done? I've done exactly what I didn't want to do,
Hmm.
you
Exactly.
know?" But that was it. It's that there also is an element, I think, of shame that we feel as recruits. Um, we become very good at hiding things. We like you're on the rebound. You get married very, very quickly, and then you realise, um, oh no,
What?
uh, what's happened? You can't really tell anyone, can you? Because you'll look like a right idiot.
Right. What have I done? Oh yeah.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
crazy because the abuse happened right after I got married to him. 14 days after we were married, he met somebody at a bus. He picked up somebody at a bus stop and took her to a hotel.
yeah.
That was this. Yeah, that was this. And and oh, that I could get into that, but yeah, I mean, that's why I don't count that marriage.
Mm,
You know, but
mm.
um, but okay. So when you find yourself in this situation and you realize, that you realize it is what it is. You realize you're in an abusive relationship. By the time you realize this, they have already isolated you from any kind of support system, correct? With
Y-
no friends and
With
no
no, well,
associates and
well,
nothing.
not only do they cut off our support system, for me, certainly, I realised he had no friends either. He had many acquaintances. He could walk down the street and, "All right, all right, all right, all right," but there was no meaningful conversations that ever came out of any of those interactions with other people.
Oh wow.
He was, he had no friends,
Let me
and,
let
and
me
it
ask
was,
you a question because I know this was Mark was very um, charismatic.
yeah,
Everybody loved Mark. He would go to the bar and he would be he was so friendly and to the point where when I finally started telling people what was going on, they didn't believe me because Mark wouldn't do that. That's not Mark.
yeah,
Oh, you've got to be doing something to cause him to be doing that, Lori.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, he just had like this personality that I guess only I saw because everybody else didn't see it.
No, exactly, exactly. It is behind closed doors. It really is behind closed doors.
So when
In
you
my
find yourself,
case,
go ahead.
so in my case, my ex was really, really close to his mother and really, really close to one of his sisters. There was a 10-year gap between them, and I think the mother kind of like used this particular sister to mother him as well. She had a chaotic lifestyle, so to him, every time we had an argument, it's like, "Tell me to get out then. Come on, tell me to get out." And he pushed me. And I always used to say to him, "Please don't say those words, tell me to get out, because you're gonna make me say that, and I don't want to say that anymore.
Yeah.
But he'd do, he'd like, face up to me, like, tell me to get out. Come on. And it'd be right in my face, tell me to get out. And in the end, I'd scream, get out, just get
Well,
out. I
because
don't
then
want
they're
to.
the victim. Then they're the victim. And
Yeah,
then
they
then
become the
they
victim. He
have
phones
then
his family up.
they have validation to do whatever they do after that point,
Yeah.
whether it be sleep with somebody else, hit you, call you names,
Mm,
scream and yell at you, throw things,
mm,
everything past that point is now your fault.
yeah. Just going back to Mark, you say he was very charismatic.
He was. They're
Did he
crazy.
have any real meaningful friendships though?
Aside from family, no. He had a very close relationship with his father,
Mm,
to the point where, I mean, we would at that point in my life, it was all centered around sports. I mean, I could recite to you everybody that played on our team, which was the Washington Redskins. I could tell you all their stats. I could tell you their names. I could tell you what colleges they came from. I could tell you everything. He's the only the only person I've ever met in my entire life that set an alarm for Sunday morning so that we could get up and be at the bar on opening kickoff.
yeah.
And we would stay there all day, sometimes until the late game was done and over with, which is, well into, but he was very charismatic. He had a close relationship with his nephew and his ex brother-in-law. He had a close relationship with a guy that he shared a cell with in prison one of the first or second time that he was there. I don't know. And he had a close relationship with another guy that he had known, I guess, prior to me. I don't know. But other than that, he had no friends. I mean, nobody ever came over to the house.
No.
Um,
Apart from family.
we went to his brother's like 4 nights out of 7 for dinner,
Yeah.
and he worked with his brother all day. So he works with the brother all day. Then we have dinner, and then we sit around till 7, 8 o'clock, and then we go home, and then we get up and we do it all. He was a roofer, and he was a foreman for his brother-in-law's business. And when he wasn't doing that, his brother had a business um, flipping houses, so he would go and he would work with them. So, but other than that, no, he never had any close like relationships with other people that weren't family.
Mm,
And I think
yeah.
that's where you said one of the signs is, be suspicious of anyone that doesn't have any meaningful friendships.
Mm. And the next one, exes usually keep their distance. In my case, certainly there were two of the mothers of three of his children that wouldn't have anything to do with him. And in fact, one of them, her boyfriend used to bring the daughter over for so that they could have contact. He'd never go and get the daughter. The boyfriend of the mother used to come and bring the daughter. When I learnt to drive and I finally got driving, if it wasn't for me, I don't think he would have seen his children.
Wow.
I'd be driving all over the place saying, you must see such and such, you must see such and such. And going back to sport, I don't know, maybe there's some sort of weird link with sport as well. Um, Certainly in the UK, when the soccer's on, um, domestic abuse goes up that weekend. Police have become really aware of it because of all the drinking, especially if a team has lost the,
Right.
the the perpetrator will come back home and take it out on the recruit. Um, but in my case, my ex's son got signed up for a rugby league team, and he got into the first team. So this gave my ex kind of like a sense of grandeur, if you like. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
my son, there he is. He's on the wing. He's just scored
Right.
3 tries in one go, and he was an amazing rugby player, I have to say. And this lad, at the age of 14, he took me to one side, and he said, "You really don't want to have anything to do with my dad." He actually said that to me. You know, the great thing about kids is that they actually do see in the end. Even
Yes, they
my
do.
own son,
Yes, they do.
that he's seen.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so the exes keep their distance. In my case, his ex-wife, he'd been
Oh,
married once before, but the marriage only lasted a year. His ex-wife came over to our house unusually often, actually, when I think about it, and
oh, hmm.
she'd we'd be in the kitchen chatting, and because I like wouldn't let unfortunately, pray for me, everybody, but I still smoke, and I used to smoke back then, and she smoked as well. So we used to go into the kitchen to smoke so we could have the back door open. And I'm now sure that she was trying to tell me something, but she didn't know how to.
Wow.
And I think that when I look back at my actions when he got with the next person and then the next person, there was something inside of me. I've got to warn these people. I've got to warn
Yeah.
them. You know, it's like
Yeah.
you feel desperate to warn
Yes.
them, and
Yes.
you come across as the crazy bitch.
Right.
You know, it's
No,
just
you're absolutely right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the sad part of it is, I'm sure that I know I was not the first, and I am positive I was not the last.
oh yeah, I know. I know because I keep myself up to date, and my son does tell me my ex is now with somebody that's 18 years younger than himself. I'm gonna see how that works out because he's nearly
Oh
60,
boy.
so it's
Oh
she's got
Lord.
really young kids as well. Yeah. Even the son that told me the guy that played rugby, he's quite close to my son, and I know they've talked. You know, I know they've talked. I know that they've seen through their dads, and it's like I feel quite sorry for them because it's like this is your dad, you know.
Right.
Crikey. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, this next slide, they give you all their time. It kind of like it does it is a red flag, and it ties into the no friends one as well. Certainly in my situation, you know, it was he lived in one town, I lived in Manchester, and if I wasn't with him, the texting was literally 24/7 because he used to work night shifts. So
Hmm.
I'd be all day trying to work and answer his text messages or answer his phone calls. And then at night, I'd be up all night
Oh
talking to
wow.
him while he was at work. You know, he literally exhausted me. He
Yeah.
would he wouldn't leave me alone. You know,
Right.
I love you. And then I remember he phoned me up one time and he must have looked up on Google. And I was back then never really, well, still am not very I'm a technophobe. Um, I'm not very good with computers. And he must have looked up on Google all the different languages to say I love you. And he messaged me I don't know how many different languages. I can't even tell you how many different languages he messaged me to say I love you in one night. And there's
Oh
me going, oh my God, this is so romantic. Duh.
right.
It's
Exactly.
laughable. So yeah, they give you all their time. They don't let you have other relationships, hobbies, or goals because they just don't give you time to do that. I'm an
Right.
artist. For the whole 12 years that I was with him, well, no, sorry, I'll tell a lie. For the first 7 years I was with him, I produced no art. After his affairs, I opened up my own art studio. Little plug, something out of nothing, it's called. Find me on Facebook. And that art came out of me dealing with his affairs. And what was creepy was when the domestic abuse services helped me to get a house in Wales. Um, and you know, it's just miles and miles away from him. He lives in England, and I packed all my stuff. And you know what it's like when you just throw all your boxes into your new house and you're unpacking. And I had all these paintings, and I was kind of surrounded by them. because we prop them up against the boxes to keep them safe from getting ruined. And I was sitting in the middle of the room and I looked around at all these paintings and I realized that they were all paintings of a cage. And I hadn't even computed in myself when I was producing these paintings, because I used to just have a blank canvas and I called my studio something out of nothing, because most of the time I didn't have any idea what I was going to do when I was going to paint. It would just come out, and I let it come out. And I produced dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of paintings. I used a glue gun. I used to paint a background, and then I used a glue gun to make crisscross shapes, or to join it up like a cage, basically. And I realized that it was like my past self was talking to my future self through art, if you understand what I mean.
Do you mind if I show your self-portrait?
No, you can go ahead. It's a bit it's a bit elongated, but yeah, yeah. It says everything, I hope.
So this was your self-portrait, and you let me also show your Facebook page, which is called Something Out of Nothing. And here it is here. You guys want to go over to Facebook and give her a follow. This is where you can find her. And we're also going to give some information on how you can get in contact with Nikki, because we're going to be talking about something project that she's going into. So, but we're going to continue on. I want to go to the next one, which is mirroring. We
Hmm.
talked about this, I think, earlier,
Mm,
didn't we? How the
we did.
mirroring, how we, you know, uh, let's talk a little bit
Yeah,
about mirroring, because I think this is how I lost myself, was because um I tried to put forth a face that I thought that that's what he wanted.
mm.
Is that what mirroring is?
Yeah, well, they mirror you as well. For instance, like my example of wanting to have somebody that cooked and washed up. That was like kind of like mirroring something that I wanted. They got the information out of me so that they could kind of use it against me, or
Mm.
or anyone, so to speak. Um, Mirroring also makes the recruit feel special. You're the everything to this person, and they convince you through mirroring that you're their soulmate. We
Okay.
had that conversation many a time,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. But and like it says on the screen here, they may take on similar hobbies. Mine didn't. Mine disabled my hobbies. Um, Display the same emotional reactions or mimic body language. What we have to remember here is body language is really, really, really important. Um, and that within the first, what is it, 10 seconds or something, we like or dislike a person because of body language. um uh, it speaks to us subconsciously, so their body language, if they mirror our body language, we're basically falling in love with ourselves in a weird kind of twisted way,
That is
you
kind of,
know.
yeah. Yeah. Wow. I never
It's
thought of it
deep,
that way.
it's deep, it's really, really deep. And each one of these subjects, I know we're talking a lot about our own experiences, but I think that each one of these subjects has got its own podcast in itself. And
Yeah.
the list, as I've found as I was drawing up the slides, it was endless, and I literally had to. I was so exhausted because emotionally, I was like, oh my God, we've got to do something about this. The sense of urgency that I have about it is, we have to somehow get this word out. It's not about us. I mean, we're talking about our relationships so people can maybe identify. I mean, we might have some people listening here that have suddenly realized they're in a toxic relationship, and I'll thank God that somebody might have realized that, and I pray that they get the help and support that they need to get out of it as well.
Exactly.
We have to take responsibility for doing this kind of show, because it is triggering for people. It
Hmm.
might give realization to people as well as educating people as well. And this is
Exactly.
where it's a really, really fine line. And I guess that we've got to be careful. Um, this is the first time I've really talked about it publicly like this.
Mhm.
Um, and
Yeah, I've hinted, throughout the years, of the abuse. I've never kept it a secret. I've never kept any aspect of my life. Has never been a secret.
uh,
Even to the point where, um, in that abusive relationship, I was in deep in substance abuse because
mm,
it numbed me.
yeah,
That was what allowed me to keep the blinders on, of
absolutely,
everything.
absolutely. Yeah, and
He
it's really, really, really common for recruits to turn to alcohol or
Mhm.
drugs. And this is where it becomes really, really sad is that a recruit is so vulnerable to addiction themselves when they've come out of a relationship like that. And there are many, many, many stories that I've heard of women who have had their children taken away from them because of substance abuse or alcohol misuse or addiction. And this is the really, really sad part of it all, is that the PTSD or the complex post-traumatic stress disorder that a recruit will suffer, um, they don't even know they're suffering from it. I
No.
didn't know I was suffering from it.
Mhm.
I used to freak out at social services. I'd go absolutely ballistic down the telephone at social services because they triggered me, or he'd said something or the
Yeah.
family had said something, and I'd just fly. And then social services would look at me as a danger to my child.
Right. Which, and I'm probably going out on a limb here, but he was probably smirking at that, saying, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
without it. Well, the aim of the family was to get my son taken off me. They
right.
they told social services I was a crack addict,
Yeah. Well, I know that's not
and
true. Yeah.
I've never touched the stuff in my life.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
I don't want to either.
Right. Exactly.
You know,
So
but we've gone off topic there. But yeah, wanting to move too quickly, I think that we've both
we,
highlighted how fast the romance is
right.
accelerated. Um, and it's such a big warning sign. But again, the films of the 80s, they make us think that this is romantic in some way. A film always ends with a kiss, and then you imagine that the happily ever after happens, and they always move in together really fast. And that's not what a healthy relationship looks like. A healthy relationship looks like you meet the person, you get to know the person. Hopefully we can abstain from intimacy, but it's very, very difficult to abstain from intimacy without marriage. And some people don't want to get married after being in an abusive relationship. um but we've got to check ourselves, and we've got to check the other person if they're pushing you into something, or if you find the words "packy" written across your door, you phone the police. You don't phone you don't phone your boyfriend. you know um and declarations of love, implying that you're a soulmate, um promises of a perfect life together. We can say that, and then we go back to the other slide that we had where it says it's a lie. It's not even a relationship. It's a lie.
Yep.
Don't do it,
Exactly.
folks. Don't do it. Listen to your gut. Listen to your gut. If
Yeah.
this relationship that you've just found yourself in is moving too fast, run for the hills, love.
Exactly. Exactly. Then we've got something we've touched base on was is the controlling nature of the perpetrator. You know, he wants to
Mm.
control every aspect of your life. He wants to control your friends, your job. You know, what time you wake up in the morning, what time you go to sleep at night, what you eat, where you eat. You know, and I think this goes along with the isolation as well.
Absolutely. I had that. He used to buy me clothes, and I used to think, oh wow, a man buying a woman clothes, that's unusual. Um, and then at the end of the relationship, I looked at all my clothes, and I'm like, I would never choose these colours.
Right.
You know,
Who? Yeah.
mustard,
Who?
mustard next to my skin makes me look awful. It makes me look green, you know. And he used to buy me all these outfits that didn't flatter me. He used to feed me up because I'm a really good cook, and I taught him to cook, and he took over the cooking
Hmm.
completely. Used to watch MasterChef and then like present me with like these beautiful plates of food with little notes on, and make me feel loved and cherished, and ugh,
Right. Right.
ugh.
Exactly.
But that's part of the controlling nature, isn't it? That's
Yeah.
the thing. We've talked about the
That's
jealousy and
jealousy.
distrust.
We did. We talked
The
about that.
jealousy.
I'm gonna leave this up on the screen so you guys, pause it and read these. This is another one that we wanted to put up there because this is definitely when you go through this, you are traumatized. Your brain has been rewired against your
Yeah,
will, without your knowledge or your consent. Your brain is now traumatized, right?
yeah. And we've covered a number of these topics,
Yeah,
hypervigilance,
the hypervigilance.
disassociation. Now, that's one that I suffer from now. Um, I don't know whether I suffered from it before. I certainly suffer from it now, where I can sit and watch a film with my partner, and then a few weeks later I'll say, "Oh, do you want to watch this film?" And he's like, "But we've already watched it," and
Hmm.
I don't have any memory of that, which
Right.
is, it's like I've gone off in another world.
Hmm.
Depression, you will become depressed.
Oh yeah,
You
absolutely.
you you will be numb. You will become an insomniac. You will feel self-shame and hatred. You will have panic attacks. Oh my God, the panic attacks. Oh, oh, yeah. Emotionally overwhelmed. Chronic pain. Now, yeah, I've been diagnosed. I have a really unusual skin condition that nobody seems to know what it is. So I got referred to a psychodermatologist,
Oh
and my
wow.
psychodermatologist has said that the pain that I experience all day, every day, is due to trauma. It's like the
Mhm.
trauma from my inside is coming out, and it's still hurting me. It's so frustrating. It still hurts. I'm out 9 years now.
Wow.
I think it's kind of like a fibromyalgia response or
Yeah,
something like
I
that.
have I have fibromyalgia as well. Here's another coping mechanism that I was not aware of that I used, and I not only used it with Mark, but I also used it with my husband Buddy. I used it. It's called, and I don't know if anybody else here has heard about it. It's called maladaptive daydreaming. Have you ever heard of that?
Well, I did chemotherapy, and in scheme it unfortunately I didn't finish it, but what they teach you in chemotherapy is all about your maladaptive schemas.
Oh
And
wow.
maladaptive schemas are actually formed in childhood. So
Oh
it could be down to nature, it could be down to nurture.
right.
Okay, and these maladaptive, you get good schemas that form, but our
Mhm.
maladaptive schemas are like our fight flight response.
Yeah. So
So
For anybody that doesn't know, maladaptive daydreaming is a condition that can be a coping mechanism for trauma and abuse and may provide an escape from difficult thoughts and feelings. People with maladaptive daydreaming may become so absorbed in their daydreams that they disassociate from reality. I used to lay in bed and I had a whole, and this is, please, I'm not crazy. I had a whole different life when I
Mm,
would go into bed and close my eyes. I had an
yeah,
apartment, I had a job, I had friends, I had a dog. I literally had a different life when I closed my eyes and or even sitting on the couch. I could transport myself to that other world and have that life. It's called maladaptive daydreaming, and I became very um, since moving to Chicago, since being in a relationship with Dave, I can no longer do that. I've tried like several times over the years because it was a good place. It was I liked that place, and
yeah,
I don't have the same. I don't get the same. Uh, I don't know feeling from it anymore. It's just it
yeah.
doesn't feel real to me anymore. But yeah,
Yeah, I still suffer quite badly with disassociation, and I don't know why. I don't know. I've been in therapy and it's gone wrong, and I'm not sure. I don't know. I think that therapy is a good thing, but it when you're traumatized, the traumatized mind needs years to heal, and the mental
it
health services
rewires
are
itself.
collapsing.
Your brain literally has to, rewire itself, and it's,
It literally does.
and
It
sometimes it
literally
never happens,
no.
depending on,
And that's okay. That's
right,
okay. Do you know, I've
yeah,
I've actually found that some of the conditions that I've been diagnosed with mentally is like, well, do you know what? Okay, I'm a crazy bitch. That's fine. It means that I can kind of like I can put in boundaries,
yeah,
and I'm not scared of that. I'm not scared of anyone anymore, which is freeing.
exactly, exactly.
Which is freeing. And
So
that's the gift. That's
I'm
the
gonna
gift
put
that
this
he gave
final one
me.
up on the. This kind of is a synopsis of just about everything we've covered. We've covered at least, or even touched Bella, at least touched on these. So if you guys are watching, go ahead and, stop the show and go ahead and read these things. But we have definitely we've gone and covered those. But we are over the 2 hours lines, but we've covered, I think, just about everything, Nikki, except
I think so.
for except for this. We've told you guys this for a reason. This wasn't just a show, for two people to get up here and to talk about our life experiences, or to, to put that out there. There's actually a purpose, and I'm going to turn it over for Nikki so she can tell you about her project.
Okay. So last week, this has all happened very quickly. Last week, I was driving back home from London. I'd gone to a funeral, and I was just driving home, and there, I don't know if anyone else will relate to this, but I have like a little movie that goes on in my mind, somewhere at the top of my head, and I can kind of watch this movie play out. And the only way that I can describe it, and I know it might sound a bit cheesy, but it was like a vision. That's the only way that I can describe the experience. And I'm driving along the motorway, kind of watching this movie play out, and I'm thinking to myself, "Oh, hold on a minute." Now, what I saw a group of people on a stage, a choir, and behind that choir there was a massive screen, and on that screen were lots of other people, and they were all singing along together. And I realized that all of those people that were singing in unison together were all people that were either recruits of domestic abuse or had experienced domestic abuse in their lifetime, i.e., they grew up in with their mother and father being in that kind of relationship. And I just thought to myself, that is so powerful. And then this sense of urgency came upon me about teaching people what red flags look like before you get into the relationship, because there is little or no education about it. And I thought this choir could be a way of getting that message out. That's the vision that I had anyway. So I've set up an email address because I want to ask the listeners out there, if you have been through a relationship that has had some kind of abuse, it doesn't matter if it's physical abuse, it doesn't matter if it's mental abuse, it doesn't matter if it's financial abuse, any kind of abuse, we're interested in you joining the choir. What was it that we said before? Connection is the antidote to abuse. That's it there. Domestic violence is an epidemic. Connection is the antidote. It came to me today, I think, as I was thinking about the choir, and I was thinking, I used to be in music ministry, but I am by no means a musician, and I'm not really a very good singer either. When I listen to myself back, I'm like, oh my goodness me, did I sound like that? Don't like listening to the sound of my own voice. But where was I going? So yeah, so this choir, the idea of it is to bring the message to the people. The choir is called Warrior. That's it, Warrior, nothing else. Because each individual person that has come through and survived domestic abuse is a warrior. And they're here for a purpose. We've gone through all of that and we've become stronger at the other side so that we can do something about it. And unfortunately, what we find is on the internet is it's only people that have been through it that talk to other people that have been through it. And we need to get back to the beginning here. So at the bottom, there's an email address, singbgt@gmail.com. If you have been in an abusive relationship, regardless of whether you think you can sing or not, we are interested in you. If you know somebody that's been victim or a recruit of an abusive relationship, please share this video or talk to them. Ask them if they'd be interested in joining us so that we can actually conquer this from the root. We can fight this from the root because nobody else is. And it only takes a few people to make a massive difference. In this case, I'm hoping that it will take a lot of people to make a huge difference. And that's
Exactly.
it. Yes, Debbie, we are warriors. We are. Heather, we have become stronger. And we are coming out of it. We are out of it. You sound horrible singing. Don't worry, I sound horrible singing as well. It's about making noise. It's yes, there are words involved, but as a choir, you're not an individual. You are connected together. There's no fear. The other thing that I wanted to say is that when this choir forms, I'm hoping that it'll be able to go onto stage. I think it's appropriate that everybody that is in the choir wears some kind of mask across their eyes. And that is because I personally would be completely happy showing my face, but I know that there are other people that it would actually be dangerous for them to show their faces. So everyone, those party masks that you get, for kids, they've got glitter on them, or
Yep.
make your
Yep.
own mask, that covers the
Yep.
eyes, just anything. As long as
Exactly.
it's not kind of like weird going down the eyes wide shut route.
Exactly. We don't want to go. We don't want to go down that
We
route.
don't want that.
Our first and foremost is to keep the person participating safe and knowing that they're safe and not have any repercussions from their participation. And
Yeah.
We just don't want people to feel that, you know, they can't participate because they may be seen, or they can't participate because, you know, they might get recognized.
Yeah. Or
So,
being self-conscious as well,
or
you know,
being
that's a huge
self-conscious.
one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
You know, because I
It's
mean, it
okay.
does do something to your self image to go through this kind
Yeah.
of abuse as well.
And
Yeah.
singing is healing.
Singing. It is
It is
absolutely.
healing. I know from doing music ministry, we used to do conferences, so there were thousands of people at these conferences, and having thousands of voices singing together is the most powerful thing that you can experience.
Right.
It's amazing. It's amazing. It really is.
Exactly. So if you are interested in participating in this project, if you are, you know, somebody that, you know somebody that may want to, please reach out to Nikki. She's also, you know, I gave you her link to her page there. I don't know if you want to give people your personal. I wouldn't if I were you.
Yeah,
But
well, Heather's actually mentioned here that maybe we can set up a
yes,
support group. I do. Maybe you could put this in the link. I do have a page called Revelations of a Betrayed Heart. Um, on that page, I mean, I kind of use it. I post a lot of memes, um, just explaining, you know, what it's what gaslighting is, or what emotional abuse looks like, or maybe I'll do a video of some spoken word that I've done or something like that. I don't know how to make up a page where, you know, like when we were in the community, maybe I can turn to you, Laurie, when we're in the community, you know, so other people can join, put their own things in the chat. Because for me, I'm a bit busy to maintain a page on my own. But
mhm.
Heather, yes, we could set up a support group. That would be amazing.
And I think Heather, you're in our women's group too. I think isn't Heather in our women's group?
I think so. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
I think
so.
so too. Yeah. So
She's a very faithful poster, I must say. Thank you,
yes,
Heather.
she is. Yes, she is. She's wonderful, and she's been on this journey of life coaching, and she's just somebody that is. I love Heather. I mean, she's just an amazing sister. So
Indeed, indeed, indeed. Yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah, we can do a
well,
private YouTube Zoom. Yeah, we can. I can't because I don't know how to.
we'll teach you. We'll teach you. It's
No,
Zooms
don't.
are
No,
very
don't.
good. So, but go ahead and contact Nikki, and hopefully we can get this thing off the ground. And you are working on kind of a deadline to get this done, right?
Yeah, we've got less than 6 months.
Right,
Well, we've got less than 6 months, or we can do it for a year and a half, and really, really get it good.
right.
I don't know. I'm working on God's good humor here. We also need help, certainly with technology. People, please look up a guy called Eric Whitaker. He started an online choir during lockdown, and he eventually managed to reach 4,000 people in 73 different countries, all singing together
Yeah,
during lockdown.
yeah,
I did contact him. Unfortunately, he's too busy. You know, he gets a lot of requests for contact. His music producer, though, has been very, very helpful to
right.
me, and has suggested that we need a video editor. We need people that are technologically minded, with music. Um, and we could actually do with a choir master as well. I've come up with a mashup of songs that we can do to for a 2-minute performance. Um, which is what we need to do for this particular project. As you contact me, I will go into more detail about it.
Right, right.
Um, but yeah, we need all kinds of help. So it's not just singing.
Yeah. So if you guys know somebody again, you can contact Nikki at singbgt@gmail.com, or you can contact her through her page I put the links, both links in there, and I'll put it in the description for you guys below the video when we're done with this. Nikki, thank you for doing this.
Thank you too. It's been a long time coming. We've talked
It has,
for many
yes.
years about doing this.
We also, guys, so Nikki and I, we both come out of the Roman Catholic Church. We're both recovering Catholics, and there will be another Nikki Laurie broadcast coming up. I feel real soon, having to do with the Virgin Mary and the ley line. So
Yeah,
not yet.
that's a big topic.
It's coming. It's coming.
It's coming.
So, all right. All right. Well, I do want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. I want to thank everybody in our chat room. Thank all of our moderators. Nikki, I love you to death, and we will do this quite soon, I hope.
Yeah. Hopefully we might be able to get time to do some bite-sized domestic abuse podcasts. Quick fire 15-minute ones would be good.
Exactly. Yeah, kind of break this down and put it on a series format. It'd be great. So, all right, guys, want to thank everybody for joining us.
Yeah,
and until next time, guys, remember, eyes open, no fear.